I'm really excited today to introduce our She's4Sports guest, Kat Jayme. She's a sport filmmaker, and we're going to have a great conversation. Kat, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Ainka.
Can you talk about your passion for basketball and just why you wanted to continue sharing your passion through filmmaking?
I think I've hit the sweet spot in terms of being able to combine two of my passions, basketball and filmmaking. And I remember, even in high school being like super torn, like, what should I put my more energies towards? Is it, in the gym to become a better basketball player? Or, I was starting to really get into filmmaking and I loved editing. And that's one of the great things about filmmaking, especially documentary filming. You can kind of tell stories about, things that you're passionate about, stories about your own community.
So tell me a little bit about wanting to tell the story of Big Country and just being a fan of Big Country and how that was explored in terms of the fan experience and when you connected with him in your first film.
When I was in film school and university, I always wanted to tell the story of the Vancouver Grizzlies. I wanted to really show that this team was way more than just a losing team and how much they meant to the community, how much they meant to young athletes like myself. No one has seen or interviewed Bryant Big Country Reeves since the Grizzlies left town. And so I was like, wait a second, I loved Bryant. Bryant was one of my favorite players, my favorite player on the Grizzlies. And so I was like, maybe, what if I was the first person to get that interview?
When you produced Finding Big Country, as a filmmaker and as a fan, is there one specific thing that you learned about Big Country that surprised you?
Yeah, I didn't realize how much playing in Vancouver meant to him. And I didn't know, he never asked for a trade. And I thought that was one of the coolest things that I learned about, from his time in Vancouver, because obviously, again, we did not have, the best team in the league. And, of course, spending time with Bryant was probably one of the highlights of my life, getting to know him and his family. But then after Finding Big Country, there was a lot of people who were like, okay, yeah, we want in on this next one that you keep talking about. And so that's kind of how the idea of Finding Big Country was born, and how that idea kind of, set me on the path to make the Grizzlie Truth. When the film premiered at the Vancouver International Film Festival, we flew out 4 players, including Steve Francis. And we had 2 sellout screenings in a theater that packed 1,600 audience members, and just the love that the players received that day. I was like, this is what I was telling you guys about. So it was really cool to show them, to have them come back to Vancouver and to show them, how much love the city still has for the Grizzlies.
Can you talk a little bit about what it is like to be a Vancouver Grizzlies fan? I know you're a super fan, so just take me through a little bit of that experience.
So the Grizzlies came to Vancouver when I was 6, and I absolutely fell in love head over heels with the team. I went to many games with my family, and the NBA just did such a great job. The Vancouver Grizzlies organization did such a great job with, making the games just so accessible and just very exciting. I remember, I'll get goosebumps just thinking about walking into the arena and just when you walk into the arena and you see all the players practicing on the floor, the music's blaring, you can see the dancers and the mascot, and there's just so many fun elements, especially when you're a kid. It's just this is so cool. This is so magical is the word I used to describe NBA games when I was a kid. But again, because I was a kid, I was 12 when they left. I was very naive because I was like, yeah, but they'll come back or we'll get another team. And I didn't really understand what it means when the NBA leaves your city. It means it's very unlikely that they're going to come back. I am just a childhood fan of the NBA of the Grizzlies, who ended up becoming a filmmaker, and now who gets to I get to hang out with all these childhood heroes of mine, and I get to thank them, for the impact they had on my life.
Maybe talk a little bit about the power that basketball has to bring, fans from different perspectives, from different communities together.
Yeah, I think it's really special to be able to highlight how basketball is more than a game. in the Grizzlie Truth, and I feel like we highlight it in many different ways, and we were able to speak to so many young super fans who are now like me, kind of like in our 30s, and we're able to share sort of how the Grizzlies, we were like, I think the Grizzlies are just such a powerful example of the power of sport, because we were the worst team. We interviewed a lot of second generation and first generation Canadians who share how the team made them, connected them to their roots. The team, players like Abdur-Rahim, who had a Muslim background, inspired, one of our super fans, Keith, who never really saw himself, on the court.
Let's talk a little bit about growing the game. Where would you like to see sort of the WNBA go in terms of growth and having more support for women's basketball?
Oh man, I am so excited about the WNBA right now. The WNBA, of course, already existed when I was a kid, but it was so much harder to access here in Canada. And so, I heard the names like Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, and all that stuff, but I didn't, it's not like I could turn on the TV and watch the WNBA or read about them or, get their trading cards or things like that. And so now I actually feel more like a kid when it comes to the WNBA, because there's so much going on. And it's just so cool how, Toronto is getting a game. I think it's a really exciting time for females, whether female athletes or females in the media, in sport. And, I'm grateful to, in my small way, to be a part of, the movement or what's happening. And it's very cool to be speaking with you today. And I appreciate you having me on.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.